Caleb Thorne never expected to inherit anything, but when his great-uncle passed away in rural Texas, the estate attorney handed him a title deed to 3,458 acres, including one of the largest private lakes in the county. What Caleb didn't know was that someone had been profiting from his water for years. The property records at the county clerk's office confirmed it. Caleb now held sole ownership of the lake, the surrounding acreage, and every riparian right attached to the water. His great-uncle had owned this land since 1961. No liens, no encumbrances, no shared easements. It was entirely his. Caleb drove out to see the lake for the first time on a Saturday morning. The scale was breathtaking. Miles of undisturbed shoreline, deep blue water stretching beyond sight. But as he walked the eastern perimeter, something caught his eye. Industrial-grade PVC piping ran from the lake's edge into the tree line, heading toward the neighboring subdivision. He followed the piping for nearly a quarter mile. It led directly to a concrete pump station behind a row of homes in Pinecrest Estates, an HOA-governed community bordering his property. The pump station bore a small metal placard, Pinecrest HOA, Water Distribution Facility. Caleb felt his stomach drop. Over the next 3 days, Caleb observed water tanker trucks arriving at the pump station between 6 and 8 in the morning. Each truck bore logos from a regional landscaping company and a commercial agricultural supplier. The HOA was not simply using his water. They were selling it, generating unauthorized revenue from a resource they had no legal claim to. Caleb confronted one of the truck drivers. The man shrugged and said the HOA board had been selling lake water to commercial buyers for at least 7 years. He even mentioned a quarterly invoice from the Pinecrest board president. 7 years of unauthorized revenue extracted from Caleb's inherited property, and no one had ever asked permission. Caleb went straight to the county records office. The board had zero legal authority over his lake. Buried in a supplemental filing at the county clerk's office, Caleb found something even more damaging. The Pinecrest HOA had submitted a fraudulent property annexation request 3 years earlier, attempting to reclassify a portion of his lakefront as common area HOA land. The request had been denied, but the board had continued operating as though it had been approved. Caleb hired a forensic accounting firm to trace the money. Their financial audit uncovered that the Pinecrest HOA had collected over $412,000 in water sales revenue over the past 7 years. None of it appeared in the HOA's official budget disclosures. This wasn't a minor oversight. This was systematic board misconduct. $412,000 extracted without consent, without contract, without any legal basis. The damage assessment was staggering. Caleb now faced a choice: let it go or hold every board member personally accountable for their fiduciary duty violation. He chose accountability. Caleb attended the next Pinecrest HOA board meeting. He sat in the back row and waited for public comment. When the board president, Greg Sterling, opened the floor, Caleb stood and asked a single question. Under what authority had the board been selling water from a privately owned lake? The room went silent. Greg Sterling fumbled through a response, claiming the HOA had historical usage rights and that the water had been accessed for decades. Caleb placed a certified copy of his title deed on the table and informed the board that no easement, no zoning ordinance, and no CC&R provision granted them access. Sterling's face went pale. 3 days later, Caleb received a letter by certified mail from the HOA's management company. The letter claimed he was in violation of community aesthetic standards and imposed a $1,500 fine for unapproved lakefront modifications. Caleb wasn't even a member of the HOA. This was pure CC&R abuse, a retaliatory strike disguised as a compliance action. The fines kept escalating. Within 2 weeks, the HOA sent 3 additional HOA bylaw violation notices totaling $4,000, each citing fabricated infractions on property Caleb owned outright. They even threatened to lien against his lakefront parcel. The board was weaponizing its authority against someone who wasn't even under its jurisdiction. This was a textbook due process violation. The HOA thinks they hold the power, but knowledge is your strongest weapon. This is the mission of HOA victims. If you are ready to stop the abuse and take back your home, subscribe to HOA Watchdog right now. Join the front line of homeowner defense. Caleb wasn't backing down. He was building his case, document by document, record by record. Caleb retained Victoria Hayes, a property litigation attorney with 22 years of experience in water rights and deed restriction enforcement cases. After reviewing the property records, the financial audit results, and the denied property annexation filing, she told Caleb his case carried extraordinary liability exposure for every sitting board member. Victoria confirmed that Caleb's riparian rights were absolute. Under Texas law, a private landowner who holds a title deed to property encompassing a non-navigable body of water retains exclusive control over that water. The Pinecrest HOA had committed tortious interference with his property by operating the pump station and selling his resource without consent or contract. Victoria drafted a formal attorney demand letter and sent it to every board member individually by certified mail. The letter outlined the unauthorized water extraction, the fraudulent property annexation attempt, the retaliatory fines, and the full scope of the board's fiduciary duty breach. It demanded immediate cessation of all pumping operations and full financial restitution of $412,000. The HOA's response was defiant. Their attorney sent a counter letter dismissing the claims and asserting that the board had acted within its administrative discretion. They also filed a formal lien against Caleb's lakefront parcel for the unpaid fines. $5,500 in fabricated penalties. The litigation cost risk for the HOA was mounting, but the board refused to acknowledge it. The stress was becoming unbearable. Caleb began experiencing chest tightness, insomnia, and episodes of elevated blood pressure. His physician consultation revealed stress-induced hypertension directly linked to the ongoing HOA conflict. His doctor documented everything, noting the chronic stress response as a direct consequence of the board's harassment campaign. Victoria referred Caleb to a clinical psychologist for a formal psychological evaluation. The evaluation documented anxiety, sleep disruption, and anticipatory dread, all consistent with negligent infliction of emotional distress caused by sustained institutional harassment. The medical damages assessment added another dimension to an already devastating civil litigation case. Victoria filed a declaratory judgment action in County Superior Court, asking the judge to formally confirm Caleb's exclusive water rights and to void every fine and lien the HOA had imposed. Simultaneously, she filed for injunctive relief to force the immediate shutdown of the pump station. The county court filing sent shockwaves through the Pinecrest board. Victoria also initiated an insurance claim investigation into the HOA's directors and officers' liability coverage. A full policy review revealed the Pinecrest HOA carried only $200,000 in liability coverage, far short of the damages being claimed. The insurance adjuster report flagged the board's conduct as potentially excluded under the Policies, Fraud, and Intentional Acts provision. The coverage dispute left board members personally exposed. The forensic accounting team delivered their final report. Over 7 years, the board had sold Caleb's lake water to 14 different commercial buyers. Total unauthorized revenue, $412,000. None of it reported. None of it disclosed at annual HOA meetings. The financial audit exposed a pattern of deliberate concealment, strengthening the case for punitive damages. During the deposition of Greg Sterling, the board president's story unraveled. Under oath, he admitted he had personally negotiated the water sale contracts. He admitted no attorney had reviewed the agreements. He admitted no vote had been taken at any board meeting. When asked if he understood his fiduciary duty to homeowners, he could not define the term. The deposition transcripts revealed systematic board misconduct. Not one board member had questioned the water sales. Not one had demanded a financial audit. Not one had verified whether the HOA held any water rights whatsoever. Victoria argued this constituted a collective fiduciary duty failure, and that each member bore individual liability exposure for the damages. The HOA's insurer formally issued a reservation of rights letter signaling a potential coverage dispute. The claim settlement risk was now enormous. If the policy excluded intentional misconduct and the evidence overwhelmingly supported that conclusion, every board member would face personal financial responsibility. Their liability coverage was effectively worthless. Victoria opened settlement negotiation channels to a formal mediation request. She presented the full damage assessment, $412,000 in unauthorized revenue, $68,000 in legal fees, $22,000 in out-of-pocket medical expenses related to stress-induced hypertension, and a demand for punitive damages at 3 times the compensatory total. The settlement figure exceeded $1.5 million. The HOA board rejected the settlement negotiation offer. Sterling insisted the board had done nothing wrong and vowed to fight the case through trial. Victoria documented the rejection in writing. She knew a jury would view this refusal as arrogance. And arrogance in civil litigation often multiplies punitive damages exponentially. Victory isn't won by shouting. It's won by documentation and legal precision. At HOA Watchdog, we dismantle board misconduct piece by piece. Do not let them intimidate you. Subscribe to HOA Watchdog today and master the art of total authority reversal. Caleb's evidence was airtight. Every property record, every invoice, every deposition transcript pointed toward one outcome. The case went to trial in County Superior Court. Victoria opened with a clear narrative. A private landowner inherited property with documented riparian rights, and a neighboring HOA exploited his water for 7 years without consent, contract, or legal authority. She called it what it was: tortious interference and a systemic easement violation camouflaged as community management. Victoria introduced the county property records confirming sole ownership. She presented the denied property annexation filing, proving the board knew it lacked jurisdiction. She displayed the forensic accounting report detailing every dollar of unauthorized revenue. And she played a recording from Sterling's deposition where he admitted no legal review had ever been conducted. An expert witness in water rights and environmental law testified that the HOA's extraction violated state riparian statutes. He confirmed that no zoning ordinance in the county authorized the commercial sale of water from a private lake. The damage assessment, he stated, was conservative, and the actual environmental impact could push liability even higher. When board members took the stand, their testimony was disastrous. One admitted she had never read the HOA bylaws. Another acknowledged he had signed water sale contracts without understanding the terms. Greg Sterling, confronted with his own deposition, contradicted himself 3 times. The jury watched every moment of the fiduciary duty collapse unfold in real time. The HOA's defense attorney requested a continuance, citing the need for additional insurance claim investigation and expert preparation. The judge denied the motion, stating the case had been properly noticed and the defense had adequate time. The litigation cost risk for the HOA had now reached a critical threshold, and the board had no exit strategy. In a preliminary ruling, the judge granted Caleb's request for injunctive relief and ordered the immediate shutdown of the pump station. He also declared the HOA's lien void, calling it a retaliatory action with no legal basis. The declaratory judgment confirmed what Caleb had known from day one. The water was his, and the HOA had stolen it. The jury returned its verdict in under 4 hours. They found the Pinecrest HOA and its board members liable on every count: tortious interference with property, fiduciary duty, breach, CC and R abuse, and negligent infliction of emotional distress. The courtroom erupted in murmurs. Caleb sat still. 7 years of theft had just been acknowledged under oath. The legal settlement judgment was devastating. Compensatory damages of $482,000, covering the unauthorized revenue, legal fees, and medical expenses. Now, punitive damages of $964,000 tripled under the court's finding of willful board misconduct. Total judgment, $1,446,000. Each board member was held jointly and severally liable. The pump station was dismantled within 30 days. The fraudulent lien was expunged from Caleb's property records. The HOA's liability coverage was exhausted immediately, and the remaining balance fell on the individual board members. Greg Sterling's personal assets were subjected to judgment collection proceedings. Caleb stood at the edge of his lake, and watched the sun set over water that was finally, legally, undeniably his. Justice has been served, but the war against board overreach continues. What would you do if your board crossed this line? Tell us your strategy in the comments. This is HOA Watchdog, where homeowners find their voice. We'll see you in the next case.